Hey, and welcome back to the channel, and this is the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra, Samsung's latest and greatest flagship. And I know that this video is a little bit late, but I wanted to wait for more updates to hit the phone and give you all a better idea of what it's like to use this phone a month and some change after its release. So just like any of the other reviews on this channel, let's start off with its specs. The Galaxy S23 Ultra is the top dog in the S23 lineup, so it's using Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. Now, my unit comes with 8 gigs of RAM, which is the bare minimum nowadays, but you can also get a version with 12 gigs of RAM, but you'd have to upgrade your base storage to 512 gigs or 1 terabyte of storage, which is really nice for a Pro Ultra phone that can shoot 200 megapixel photos. Now, this phone also packs a huge 5,000 mAh battery, and this phone can charge up to 45 watts wired and up to 15 watts wirelessly, and also features reverse wireless charging up to 4.5 watts. Now up front, there's a 6.8-inch WQHD Plus AMOLED display with a 120Hz refresh rate that features LTPO, so we can drop the screen refresh rate down to 1 Hz to save on battery. In all honesty, not much has changed here from last year, although I feel like the curvature of the screen is a little bit less pronounced than last year. Unfortunately, I don't have an S22 Ultra to compare the two side by side, but I just feel like, it's a lot better to hold in my hands. Now, let's talk more about this display though. The display is crazy beautiful to look at. Samsung, in my opinion, features the best display on a smartphone, and the S23 Ultra doesn't disappoint here. While we have smartphones out in the market with much higher peak brightness like 2000 plus nits on the iPhone 14 Pro series, the 1750 nits on the S23 Ultra gets plenty bright, and in my opinion is enough for most prosumers who wants a beautiful looking display that you can see in direct sunlight while still maintaining great colors and contrast levels. Now, before we talk more about the S23 Ultra, I just want to give a huge shout out to TPLink for sponsoring a portion of this video. By the time you're watching this video, I'll actually be coming back from Spain and we'll be in New York, and if I'm not there, I'll be off to Texas to hang out with some of your favorite curators. But what I'm trying to say here is that it's never easy leaving my house and making sure that everything back home is okay. With TP-Link's Tapo C420S2 security cameras, I can have that peace of mind knowing that everything is all good back home. Now, what's awesome about this security camera from TP-Link is that it's completely wireless and runs off of a rechargeable battery that can last up to 180 days. This means that you don't need to worry about hardwiring this around your house, which is super helpful if you're renting a place. It has a super clear 2K resolution, really incredible low light performance with a full color night vision. It has an SD card slot and cloud storage support and an alarm built in. The app is pretty intuitive and works well with Amazon Alexa and Google Assistant. And if you want to purchase the Tapo C420S2, I'll have a discount code in the description for you to check out. Now, when it comes to performance and my day-to-day usage, I was able to actually use this phone day in and day out without having it break a sweat. I couldn't find a single app that will actually slow the phone down, so it didn't disappoint here in the performance department. Whether I was just social scrolling on Instagram or TikTok or Twitter, or maybe I'm playing Genshin Impact or a completely different game for an hour or so, I didn't have any issues at all. The cool thing about the S23 Ultra, or I guess the S23 series here, is that Samsung collaborated with Qualcomm and modified the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 chip and slightly overclocked it. So what you're getting here versus the standard 8 Gen 2 is roughly around 5.5% better CPU and GPU performance. So having that extra boost in performance is something that's only on the S23 series. In real world usage though, you're only going to really see about maybe 3 to 5 frames per second difference in gaming if you're really looking for it. But day-to-day stuff like browsing the web, checking emails, or going on social, or maybe you're a power user and you like to use 2 apps at once, you're not going to notice this phone slow down whatsoever. Even after a month in, not once did I feel the phone stutter, which is really nice to see on a flagship. And when it comes to battery life, I'm going to put you guys on a little hack or tip here, and I don't think this feature gets enough love from most people, but this setting is a bit hidden. So if you search for performance in the settings, you'll actually get search results for performance profile, and there you can choose light instead of standard. And basically what this will do is sacrifice about 10% of your phone's performance, but in return give you roughly around 30 to 40% less power consumption and about 40 to 50% efficiency. From what I can tell, instead of averaging around 6 to 6.5 hours of screen on time, I can easily get 8 hours with this mode on. So if you don't mind sacrificing about 10% power, then by all means switch to light mode and you'll still be able to enjoy the QHD Plus resolution at 120 Hz, which is awesome. Now, when it comes to software and the updates that I've gotten, really all that there's new here, at least with the recent updates that I received, are bug fixes and making sure that the phone is more stable. But as for One UI 5.1, I like it. It's fairly vanilla in a way, but still comes preloaded with some bloatware from Samsung with, duplicate apps for messages or calendar, for example, or them pre-installing Microsoft apps like OneDrive or Outlook. And apparently, LinkedIn is a part of Microsoft too. But those are things that can easily be uninstalled and things that are easy to get over with. Like most phones nowadays though, OEMs aren't really pushing all these gimmicky features down your throat like they did years and years ago. With the S23 Ultra, you still have access to the S Pen, which is undeniably the best stylus that you can get on Android. Whether that's a phone form factor or a tablet, I think the S Pen is on par with the Apple Pencil, minus the size difference, but the latency or lack thereof is incredible, and the gestures that you can actually do with a pen or the commands that you can do with the S23 Ultra really complements the phone. And while I don't use the pen every single day, it's nice to know that it's there, especially if I get a contract that I need to sign and send right away. It actually feels more natural than signing things with my finger. Okay, so the S23 Ultra packs some serious heat when it comes to cameras. So the S23 Ultra comes with 4 different cameras on the back, a 200 megapixel main sensor, a 12 megapixel ultra wide, and 2 telephoto lenses at 10 megapixel, which is a 3x zoom, while the other is a 10x periscope zoom lens that's capable of zooming in up to 100x space zoom, but we've seen this before. And up front, Samsung actually got rid of the 40 megapixel camera on the S22 Ultra and opted in for a 12 megapixel camera, which is actually supposed to give you better portrait photos and selfies and better night portrait selfies as well. Now, as a whole, the S23 Ultra is most definitely equipped with the most versatile camera system on any smartphone. You have 4 cameras that can give your photos a bunch of different looks, from an ultra wide to a 100x digital zoom, which can shoot clear pictures of the moon, which is crazy. But in terms of its overall photo quality though, it's very similar to the S22 Ultra from last year, but with slightly better colors that are more true to life and a little bit less sharpening in its post-processing. Now, shooting in that 200 megapixel mode is cool every once in a while, but a few things to note here is that 1, your files for each photo is going to be around 20 to 30 megabytes per photo. 2, there's a slightly noticeable shutter lag, and 3, the processing is a lot different and really crushes the contrast and ups the saturation a bit compared to the normal auto mode. Now, going back to the cameras though, in terms of low light photos, it looks great with better white balance performance than in years past. From my experience, the photos didn't really look too muddy or noisy in the shadows, which is a great thing. But yeah, as a whole though, the S23 Ultra with its versatile camera system is definitely overkill for some people, but it's nice to have when you do want that extra reach with the 2 telephoto lenses. Now, when it comes to its video capabilities, this is where I think the S23 Ultra is in a league of its own. 1, the image stabilization for its video mode looks incredible and almost looks like I'm using the phone on a gimbal. And another thing that I noticed right away from the video samples I've shot is that it's not as overprocessed or as sharp as previous Ultra phones. And I actually said this when I first played with the phone during Unpacked in San Francisco, and I said that the S23 Ultra is the only Android phone, in my opinion, that can compete with Apple's iPhone 14 Pro in terms of its video capabilities. The stabilization is awesome, the footage looks great, the ability to record 4K 60 using all lenses is really nice too, and the fact that there's a pro video mode in the stock camera app to give you finer controls comes in really clutch if you use your phone for content creation. But yeah, that's the Galaxy S23 Ultra. Basically, it's an S22 Ultra that features a slightly better camera system that's more refined and a much more faster and efficient processor. So if you already own an S22 Ultra, there's really no need to upgrade to this phone. It's basically the same phone, and I'm actually not sure if Samsung did make the screen a little less curved, but in my opinion, using the S23 Ultra without a case felt really good, and there were less phantom touches this time around too. Also, the battery life is incredible, especially if you put the phone's performance mode into light mode. And when it comes to its cameras, the 200 megapixel sensor, in my opinion, is a gimmick. Higher megapixel doesn't always mean it's better, but the general photos and videos that I got out of the S23 Ultra is easily at the top of my list, especially on the video side of things. Personally, I would rather have a 50 megapixel camera but with a much bigger sensor, but I'd also love for Samsung to upgrade the ultra wide and the telephoto cameras with better and bigger sensors and have them add a slightly higher megapixel count than the 10 and 12 megapixels we have now, because I've used phones like the Xiaomi 13 Pro with a triple 50 megapixel camera system, and that's actually my go-to street photography camera now. But besides that though, the S23 Ultra is easily the fastest and most complete smartphone that I've ever used. Whether or not you're a fan of Samsung phones, they're doing great things, and if you do decide to pick this phone up, you're not going to be disappointed. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching, and if you actually haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do so because we are trying to get to 50k subscribers, and we're actually really close to hitting that, and with your help, I think we can get there a lot quicker. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching, and yeah, I'll see you all in the next one.